Thank you, Martha, for that introduction. I'm going to present about Papua New Guinea. It's basically about the country. Like, we come from different countries and we have our own problems, challenges, and all. And from my perspective, I will be talking from my experience as a person who was working in the rural areas, especially with because I'm in information technology. I work with people in the schools and also in health services. There are a lot of challenges that I see. Like when I graduated from the university, I decided to go back to my place because there are so many things that needs to be done there. And most of the things is basically for health and education services, because I believe, and many of us would agree, that the education and the health sector are the most important basic sectors that people get to go up the steps. So I'll be talking about general Papua New Guinea and the experience, but I will not talk much about the information technology part. I will only be giving out some brief and some details of what we see in Papua New Guinea. This is the outline of what I'll be talking about. There is a short clip that I will have to show you. It will give you a brief about what I will be talking, and then I will be talking about the infrastructures, some of the struggles we have, and some of the barriers and challenges, and then the IT or the computer infrastructures that I see as needs as one of the components that will make up the general population progress. And then I will talk about some of the initiatives that we tried to do. If you have not known Papua New Guinea, this is the map, wall map, and Papua New Guinea is just right north of Australia. We have a bigger island, but the other half is, I'm just basically going on the map of Papua New Guinea on in the world. So our island is halved, and towards the west is part of Indonesia. It's shaded, and the green one is us, the Papua New Guinea, the country that I come from. So we live in the ocean, and it is the second, together it is the second largest island after Greenland. So there we are, and then we have the map of Papua New Guinea itself. The map there, it's divided into four like regions. We call regions north, south, highlands, and highland regions. So people are looked at in different regions, and you'll see, like, if you go to Papua New Guinea, you'll find that different kinds of, like, the little bit of difference in skin complex and builds and all those when you go to the four different parts. And we call Papua New Guinea the land of the unexpected, because you go there, you don't know what will happen. Okay, I'm going to show you a short clip, just a brief on how my country is, and then you would have the basic idea. So I'll just see. This is our national anthem. This is somebody from the coast. This is the coastal part of the island. That's one of the war relics. One of the planes that was used for the World Wars. We have this oil palm that you harvest. So it's one of the agricultural product we have. That's how our rural life would be. That's a typical village in the islands where I come from. And the road conditions, that's in the towns. That's our Parliament House. That's in just the decoration of the Parliament House. It's public buses. It's one of the health centers. And the schools. That's how people traditionally dress for occasions. Okay. Thank you for watching. That's how we live, and I'm just going to give some brief history of the country, and then I'll go down. Firstly, we were sighted by two explorers back in the 1800s. They are one of the Portuguese and Spanish explorers. They located the place, and they gave the name Papua. It's something to do with the air, but I'm not really sure because of the New Guinea. The word New Guinea was given by the Spanish explorer because he saw the people like the ones in Africa, the Guinea people. So he called us Papua New Guinea, and that's how we got our name. If you go, we have a landmass of about 178,000. Or 178 square miles, and we have a population of about like 8.2 million people, and the people are divided into groups. We call them tribes because they believe that they have certain ancestors that came. So they originate from that ancestors. So they arrange themselves into tribes, and we have about 850 different local languages that different people in the tribes they speak. And most of the time you would find that people in Papua New Guinea live on agriculture, like we call subsistence farming. Like you don't do a lot for any commercial or income earning, but for just basic survival. You do your gardening, food just for survival. So our land is one of the most important resource back in our country. People have the land to live on their lives. And we have a government system of the democratic system of government where you have the Westminster system that was, I think, was taken from the British Empire because we have been colonized by Britain that time. And then we have the economy. We have a lot of mining activities there. We have oil and gas, but not so much has been happening. So that's why I would be doing this presentation based on what I see that is not right. And that's the Regina bed of paradise. It is one of the rare species we have that represents the flag. If you look at the country's flag, you'll find a bed, a symbol of a bed, and that's the bed we call bed of paradise. Basically, I was going to talk about the schools or the education system and the health system because I've been working there, and from my experience, I've been teaching in one of the secondary schools, and I was also going into some rural schools to assist in certain things like when they need some ideas about computers, and they don't have the computers there, but when they ask me to come and just give them, like, let's say there is the headmaster of the school or the head teacher of the school buys a laptop and he or she wants to know how to operate, I would go there to assist and help him. So that's how we operate. Like most of the things I see is that because we have the vast number of people living in the villages, like 82% of the population are still in the rural places, while only 15% are 18% are in urban areas. So there is a big difference that I see. And most of the education system we have, like, it's really hard for people to have access because of certain conditions. Most of those conditions are related to geography, because our country is full of high mountains, very dense, thick forest, and sometimes you would find it hard to cross when you are going by like plane. But we don't have much plane or plane companies operating there that you can go. Sometimes people have to charter planes, but they are much more expensive to go and visit people, and especially people back in some rural places, they can't have access. They have to walk to both the health system and the education system. So they have to walk for some days, like 2 or 3 days, to come to the nearest center for treatments or even for education. But most of the teachers also in the rural places, they don't want to go because they don't want to live in the rural place, which is much far from the main centers where you receive like the basic services. So these are some of the things that I see when I was working in the primary school. One of the major things that you would find would be health sector and education sectors that needs more attention, because they don't have most of the infrastructures that we have, like in the towns and in the cities. And all of this I will be talking about later. But firstly, the education system, we have an education system where I think it's not really fair, because people are much more focused in the urban areas, and they don't give much time to people or the rural education system, because most of the population, as I've said, they live back in the villages. So they don't get the service as we would want, or most of us would want it to be. And then we have the primary schools in the rural areas. We have the secondary schools, the same thing. Like most of the secondary schools in the rural places, they don't have things, especially like, as I've said, I'm used to working with computers since I graduated, and I was thinking of seeing the same thing back in the villages, but I can't because I don't have the resource. They don't have the resource that I can assist. So that is why it gets very complicated for me to like help them. Like we have this idea, we have the opinion of assisting them, but because of the resources, we can't help them. And also the colleges and the universities, because our government is producing, like it's giving free education to people. So one of the things that I also find is that because of the free education system in the primary health system, there are so many kids going to the school, but they can't finish their school, because as soon as you come to the secondary school, you have to pay your fees. In the primary, they go for free, but when you come to the secondary, you have to pay some fees. And then in the universities, we have about 4 or 5 universities for the country, and for such a population as us, there are so many kids around, but we don't have the spaces in the universities for kids to attend. So it like pushes some of the kids out of the system naturally, and we can't do anything about that. The health services, we have the same as the education system. We also have health. Many people are dying back in the villages, the remote places, because they don't have the access. One of the basic things that we need is the road. The road is one of the important things we need for transportation, but as I've said earlier, we can't, because of the geographical conditions and roads, you expect anything anytime. You will find that the bridges will be washed away by flood. There is a big landslide happening, and it's stopping you from doing the things that you wanted to do. So these are some of the natural disasters that you even cannot control. And then the country is arranged into, previously we have health services that were serviced by government. The health workers would normally go straight, but now the government has came up with what is called a Provincial Health Authority, where I was working as one of the IT managers in those authorities. Because we have the regions divided into 4, and then we are then grouped into provinces. Or you would say a state, but state is like you have a bigger state. A province is smaller than a state. So in the provinces, we have about 22 provinces in the country. So what they do is they arrange the 22 provinces into provincial health authorities. So anybody who needs health service would have to go through the provincial health authorities. And it's also complicated because you can't go to an hospital direct from your sick bed or from where you want to go, because there are systems that, like, if I am sick, then I have to go to the nearest clinic, and the clinic will refer me to the hospital. Without me going to the clinic, going direct to the hospital, they will say, you go back go back to where you come from. So these are some of the things that I find that is not really good for people. Even like if you're in emergency, then they will treat you. But if you are not like admitted to situations where they feel you are not like need urgent treatment, then they refer you back. So these are some of the struggles, and most of the workers, health workers, they live in the rural places, and you don't have a proper proper hygiene for rural people. People are exposed to sicknesses like TB, which is one of the common sickness we have because of the ventilation system, and because we live in houses where people are crowded in one, and because like where I come from, the house is like, the atmosphere is cold, so what we do is we build a house where we don't let any air like coming in. So, you have the same circulation of air that can easily, sorry. So these are some of the factors that makes us struggle to get the basic services. I have a picture I'm trying to get the latest pictures back in my place for this presentation, and this is one of it's a small 8-post where you just attend or go to for simple treatments, and that's back in the villages. And sometimes medications takes time to go and reach because of the supplier in the cities. They delay, and all sorts of problems happen. So that's how we operate. I talked about the road conditions many times. We have such roads that you cannot go. It makes it very difficult. We use most of the four-wheel drives for transportation, like basic supply of medication, or if I need to go and visit the school, I'll have to go with a four-wheel drive. And also the big trucks that carries the cargoes from the coastal, from the wharf to the islands, higher parts, and to other parts. The major infrastructures we have, they really need maintenance. That's why I don't know, our government has not given much focus, but I think they are starting to improve now, especially with the main road networks we have in the country, but not the rural places. And that's where basically I was concerned with. So you can't get to the rural places when there is no road. This is one of the ambulance. They transport people from in the rural villages back to the health centers or hospitals for emergency. Sometimes it gets very difficult to transport them because of the conditions of the road. And that's one of the places back in the place where I come from. So that's one of the rural roads. And then we have problem with the bridges. And then we have some of the fast-flowing rivers. And you can build a bridge, but when you have a flood, it takes the bridge away. People are carrying this. This is a tank. People are carrying to take it to a place where they will install. So it makes their life difficult. And on the other side, you will find that they are transporting a sick patient. They are trying to cross over a bridge made by themselves. So these are some of the conditions we have back in the places that, we can't do much. We can't do much. We see what's going on, but we can't do much about it. And we sometimes the politicians hire helicopters for emergencies to rural places. I think this is one of the U.S. Marine helicopters that went there one time and landed in one of the villages. So we have small private helicopter companies that when you need to transport certain things, when it's emergency, they call, so they transport people to and fro. And I also have the picture of a plane, airstrip. We call it airstrip. It's a rural airstrip. So people go there for transportation of goods from their place to the towns, and also for transportation of medical supplies and for educational supplies as well. So we use small planes, but as I've said, we don't have many plane companies operating there, so sometimes it gets difficult, and the other thing is it gets much more expensive to charter a plane. In the sea, we don't have people only in the islands where I was talking about. We also have people in the seas. We have about 600 islands, small islands within the country, and people, the big ships don't go, or even the boats don't go, so people have to use what we call a boat made from wood, and also they have to use small boats. We call dinghies. You have the engines there with 30 horsepower or 40 horsepower, and they can travel long distance. But sometimes, they get themselves lost in the sea and die, and all those things happen. So that's how life is up there. And then one of the basic things is, as I've said, for computers, for me to operate, I need electricity. But when I don't have electricity, I can't do anything. So it's one of the basic infrastructure that needs to be in there before people like me can assist other people. That's one of the pictures in the schools. They're trying to, these are solar panels, small solar panels. They're trying to get power into the classroom to operate. This would be like a typical school in the remote area, in the islands, or in the coastal part of the country. And sometimes when we have people, the doctors and the nurses in the hospitals or clinics, they do schedules for mothers to attend clinics, or they will give out notices saying that we will come that time. So they will go there, maybe go to the rural place, stay there for about 1 or 2 weeks, attending mothers and kids, or even fathers, for like immunization and all those things that they need to do. Or even if they have to see a doctor for medical checks, they do that. Like doctors will have to go out to the rural places, but it's not like often. And because we are disabled with like resources, and even the barriers like the condition of the geography, you can't do that most of the time, but it happens sometimes. One of the other factor that makes it very difficult for us to operate is the communication system. I think in 2012, a new communication company went in, and I think it's making our lives much more easier, because now people in the rural places can have access to mobile phones. So when they have emergency, they can call. But the problem that makes it much more difficult is the power, because you have to charge your mobile phone to be like on to communicate. So people try to use small solars and all that, but we are still working on improving that. But it's very important for us because the internet in the country is very expensive to use. It's very, very expensive to use because we have about 2-3 ISP providers. So there is not much competition, and I think the company that is supplying the internet, the main line, is like too much, or it's charging too much. So people cannot afford data communications. Voice, yes, they can do, but not the data part of the communications. I have to buy a 1-day data, and my data runs out, and the next moment I don't go to internet. So it's some of the things that cuts me out of the communication. Or if I have to be online all the time, or if I have to install some computer back in the village, and if I want people to get access to internet, I can't do that because you don't have the data. These are some of the barriers that makes us, as I've already said, you have the geographical conditions that makes it very impossible for us to have services going in, and also you have the associated disasters, like the natural disasters. You have the floods, you have the bridges washed away, and so many things happening there, so you can't. And then the other factor is low income. people, especially, don't have a better revenue generating source of income. That's one of the things that I see that is lacking, because when you have the money, you make your life improves. But when you don't have, you can't. So that's how it happens. People are looking for basic infrastructure, but they can't. And then the lack of education. Many people back home, they are not really educated. 85% still in the rural place. So it is very difficult. And sometimes, when you get things and go and put it there, they come and destroy, and all those things happen. So it only goes down to education. Educating a person means you are improving his or her life. One of the factors I also see from my end is the lack of leadership. I think we have leaders who are in parliament, but from my point, I think they what should I say? I should say corruption is happening in the politics. So that's one of the things that makes services really hard to reach people. And then lack of funding. I don't know. I think we have a lot of money, but I don't know how the money is used as well. So I have no idea. These are some of the things that I use as for me to help assist people in terms of hardware, software, networking. These are some of the things that I've been basically doing, especially to those schools that were within the reach of the electricity, or their proper facilities, where I go around to assist them, like we do. We do assist them in buying of computers. I give them the specifications of what is the right hardware to buy, and then we provide the specification of what software they buy, we install, we do the networking for the schools. And also, one of the things that really needs to be happening, that I've done for 5 or 6, but it needs a lot, is the general user training. Many people are not computer literate. Even the teachers and the health workers, they don't know about computers yet. So that's one of the things I see, and I have been helping a lot, because I've been working in the health sector. I've been training a lot of people on how to use computers, basically to go to internet, to go and do research, all those things. I've been helping them along the line. And the teacher-student training, that's basically, I've said already, currently there is none. In the cities, they are okay. They have access to certain infrastructure, but for people in rural place, they don't. Students have to really know how to use computers, because now we are in a modern age where everybody has to know how to use computers. So that's one of my concerns that I always have. And then I said internet services are not really effective. It's really hard for us. We try to help them in online libraries, but we cannot do much. Things like encyclopedia and dictionary and all those stuff that we wanted to get into for them to use, but it's not up to where we expected. Some of the initiatives that people have tried, I have tried, and some people have donated solar to rural places. They have donated computers to rural places that I've been trying to help along. I know the third one, the laptop distributions, we try to help people by asking them to buy cheaper computers, laptops, so that we learn them how to use, basically, and then they can teach others down the line. And then we have the software, the e-learning offline is what I've already said. We basically install some online libraries, like the encyclopedia and some other programs for people to use, or for the students to use, to know how basic they can go about. I think the photo there is like somebody coming back from a rural place. This end of presentation, there is a guy there. This is one of my friends who is working in the rural places, helping people with those problems. We used to communicate all the time on how he is going, and that's how life is. So I'm up. End of presentation. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, questions.
I think that your presentation is very illustrative, so I found it very interesting, the features that you presented. My question is about the structure of the government. You have a local government that is in the rural area to take care about education, health, and all the situation, and that should coordinate with the central government to solve the problems in the rural area.
The structure of the government. Previously, we used to have a system where you have three government system. You have the national government, the local government, the provincial government, and the local government. So that's how services should flow. The money goes to the provincial government, and the provincial government will distribute to the local governments, and the local governments are the ones who will be developing the place. But I don't know, when I was still in the primary school some time ago, they changed the system. So now they wanted because we have the provinces, they want the governor who is responsible for one province. So the funding goes straight to the governor, and the governor decides. The governor decides, but for the provincial health authorities that I have mentioned, the governor doesn't have any control over the provincial health authorities. It's funded directly by the national government. So for the health services, the money goes straight to the provincial health authorities. The CEO of the provincial health authorities, they decide where the money goes. And the same thing happens for education. I think we have improved from 2012. That's when the system was changed. So now the responsibility is direct to the CEO for the health services, CEO of the provincial health authorities. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. My first question is, other than solar energy, right? What other means do the people in the rural areas use to generate energy? My second question is, can you talk a little bit more about the culture of the people from PNG? So in terms of, you were explaining to me about the conflict situation, so I really want to know more about that. So the first one is more, what other means do they use to generate electricity other than solar energy?
Apart from the electricity provided by hydro, we have one or two places that people do small, what we call a mini hydro, that they do to generate power, but it's not happening all over. It's just some few people who have ideas, they have done it, but it's not like many. So there is no other source. You need, like in the village, you need the solar, and that's all. You don't have any power going in the village.
What about fossil fuel to generate?
We don't use fossil fuel, no. And the second question,
yes.
We have a lot of things in PNG, like culturally, we are more towards one of the issues is about like the land is owned by the people. We call the tribal groups have owned the land, and individually, like I have a piece of land and I know exactly where my land is, and then the other person. So like I have 4 brothers, so my father would divide the land his land into 4 pieces, and he would 5, me making 5, so he would give us each a piece, and we know exactly where the land is, where our land is. So that's how we live the life. Like if you have to do gardening, then you go to your land. You don't go and use somebody else's because you will be causing trouble. I'll come to you maybe. Yeah, Professor.
So do people from the rural areas come into the urban areas? Is that an issue? that the urban areas are getting bigger and bigger because people want a different life?
Yeah, people do come. People do come, but the problem is like there are few people who come to the cities. Majority of them are still back in the rural places. So they still need, because, you know, bright city lights, or they are looking for some good things in the cities. People do come. We also have problems in the cities. We have overcrowded settlements and so forth, but I think the cities are okay because at least they have the power, they have the electricity going into their houses, and they can live. But in the villages, no, you can't, because you don't have any source of electricity in the
So
village.
why do people stay there? Why don't they just all come to the urban area?
Well, the place is too small. The crowd cannot come to all the crowd cannot come to the city, so you can't. And also, you know, the domestic flights within the country is much more expensive. So people cannot afford to fly to and fro. Yeah. Anton.
Thank you, Francis, for the presentation. Could you tell a little bit more about security situation? What are the most prevalent security challenges in the world for New Guinea?
We have police who are doing we have army, but it's not a big army. Most of the time, the Australian army would go and assist, and we also have the policing system where you have police who are trying to control the law and order problems and situations in the country. But I think we also have the number which is not like maybe if I am to give a ratio, then it's 1 to maybe 150 people. It's not. We don't have many people who are responsible for security systems.
The conflicts occur.
We have lots of conflicts. We have, yeah, because we are in tribal groups. We know our enemies. We know who is our friend. So we do everything we do. It goes culturally or through tribal links. So you will not be a single person, or you will not be a single group. You involve or you do together as a group. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to know about the health system for women, if you have maternity services for women, and if it's for free. And another question is about transportation. When people, they need to have access to these services, or even children, when they need to go to schools, they do have access to transportation, to have the services.
For the woman, maternity is provided free of charge. You don't pay anything. It's a policy by the government that all maternity, anything to do with mothers, they give you free health care. But for the transportation, it sometimes become difficult, especially pregnant women who are about to give birth. They have to, when they're in labor, sometimes in rural or remote places, they have to use a chopper or a plane to transport them into the major hospital and then they send them back. But sometimes most of the mothers, they also die because, it's not all the time that they have to transport them in. So most mothers also die because of the conditions of transport, and they are like babies even also die because some of these places you have to walk 3 to 4 days to come to the main health center. Yeah. Juan.
Okay. So, do you think what is the main main challenge in the area, that why you have the low quality of infrastructure in the rural area, because of governmental administration or corruption or lack of resources or funding?
From my observation, I think it boils down to the leaders, because the leaders don't prioritize things. Your people, they gave you mandate. and you know their problems. But when you don't attend, you have a 5 year term as a parliament. So most of these MPs, they get voted, they go into the parliament, and for 5 years they just go disappear. And then when it comes to voting, they come back and they give money. They like throw money everywhere, and people are crazy with the money. So they get money, and then they give them the votes again, and that's how things happen. That it's really hard to control. Hey, Maverick. Barry, do you have a question?
Who's responsible for the infrastructure, for the bridges and the roads? Is that the central government? I mean, you talk about different levels, and I mean, are they putting in resources?
That's right. We have like National Roads Authority, which is in charge of the roads and infrastructure but I've never seen them like being very active in the management, because things are collapsing, like bridges are collapsing, they are washed away by floods, and so many roads are cut off, landslides in the middle of the road, and it will take about 1 or 2 days or even a week to reopen the roads again. So that makes it very complicated, and I think there is no proper management of the infrastructure itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe to follow from Professor Gerard's comment, I mean, if they wanted to go to the cities, are there jobs in the cities? I mean, what's the unemployment?
No jobs.
No jobs.
Yeah. We have a lot of graduates who are looking for a job, but they can't find a job. Because the government doesn't even give opportunities for people to find jobs. So that's one of the other factors as well that I see. Yeah. Samad.
Is there some industrial area?
University?
Industry.
No, we don't have bigger industries. I think we have manufacturing. No, I don't think so.
And then second question, who's responsible for university? Is the university private? Or?
We have about 3 universities that are owned by the government universities, and the rest are private universities. They are owned by the missions, especially the Catholic mission. That's one of the things I forgot. Most of the basic services are provided by the Catholic services. The mission services are not only Catholic, but there are some other churches that they are trying to help people to provide transport and basic health care and all those stuff, but they can't do more. I think they also need more resources.
And then your last question.
Okay.
Oh, we might have time more. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
So you were a colony of Great Britain?
We were
Until when?
I think we were colonized by Great Britain until 1902.
Yeah.
1902, like Australia got its independence in 1901.
Right.
So because Australia was also a colony of Britain, so when they gave independence to Australia, they also handed us to the Australians to manage. And then the Australians, we were like under Australian colony for some years until 1975. We got independence.
So
Yeah.
I guess my question is, what do you get from Great Britain and Australia? Do they provide lots of aid?
I think we don't get anything from Great Britain. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure about that. But for Australia, yes, they provide AUSAID. And these are some of the things that they want to, they provide in terms of like, they provide what's called a tide aid, where like they have to send in their policemen and advisors to come and tell people to do this and that. And they also provide like basic medical services. But I think all of those things can't even do enough, so that's the problem.
Okay, one final.
Maybe it's a general question, but how do you think? I mean, 80% of the population lives in a rural area, right? So they don't pay taxes, and right. So the country doesn't have industry, right? What type of industry does PNG have?
We have some, but like you have industry where they make what did I say? Fish and tin meat and all those, not big industries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my question is, where do you start? What's your idea? How do you solve these
Okay,
problems?
I'll give you the answer. What our government does is, I think we have some huge or large companies or multinational companies who are operating in oil and mining in our countries. But the thing is, the government is giving them tax holidays, so they don't pay a lot of tax. And also, our people back home, they pay a lot of. I think like they don't have a formal income and they don't pay tax. But the thing is, they have this value-added tax, where every goods you purchase in stores, you have to pay the 10% of the total you buy. So they do pay tax through the goods and services they get. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.